Wilson, who was with a group called Stiltskin, who had a big hit a year or two ago with a song called Inside. We just picked him, and we listened to lots of tapes and lots of people, and we auditioned a few people around here, and he just sounded really, really good, and we felt we could use his voice. It had a slightly thicker texture than, say, Phil's, but he had a good range, and as soon as we started working with him, we felt that he was the man.
The day I auditioned for Genesis was hell. It was quite frightening. They'd given me 7 songs to learn. One of the songs, which was in the cage, which was 11 or 12 minutes long. So there was a lot to take in for the first audition, and I think in many respects the fact that I was so nervous about it was probably a benefit, because it helped kind of performing the songs. It's kind of like being on stage for the first track. It's like you're buzzed up and the adrenaline's going and the throat loosens off, and it all helped, I think, in the long run. But I didn't think I had the job at the end of it, I've got to be honest. Well, I waited maybe 5 weeks or something, like 5-6 weeks before I got a second audition. And the second time I came along, I was singing to some of the new music they'd written. They'd written all this instrumental stuff. And they said, right, Ray, there's a mic, make some stuff up. So you're kind of bluesing around, as they call it, making words up, making melodies up, which was, I think you got to be a certain kind of character to do that, to have the confidence to do that. And fortunately, I'm blessed with a bit of confidence. And it worked out well, and a lot of the stuff I did is still there to this day, as it turns out. My own musical background, from a performing in bands point of view, I started performing at school. We had bands nights at school as early as 14 years old, and I was in most of the bands, to be honest. And that's when I found out that I could sing and enjoy the kind of limelight of being up on stage. I kind of got involved in listening to artists like Bruce Springsteen and Bob Dylan, people like that, through my father. Then I progressed and started listening to David Bowie. When I say progressed, I kind of found that myself, if you like. And that kind of introduced me to music, I think, in many respects, and writing and all the rest of it. Listening to the way these guys wrote the songs. But from a performance point of view, started at school, went into doing the pubs really young. I think I did my first pub gig when I was 15, and played in a lounge bar with the acoustic guitar. That was probably the most nerve-wracking musical experience I've ever had. And I've just been, played through the bars. Then I worked with Stiltskin. We had some success, obviously, with that. And just as that was starting to fall by the wayside, and I was developing my own band, Genesis came along and asked me to join the band.
I mean, I love writing music. That's the bit I enjoy the most, and any outlet for for doing that appeals to me. And I think Mike and I think we felt it was a bit of a challenge, obviously, without Phil. It's a new situation. We've always been compatible as writers, and we do plug each other's gaps quite well, I think. And when we play together, ideas seem to come, and for as long as that still seems to be, there's no struggle there, it seems to be worth pursuing. That was the way I felt about it, and that's why we decided to do another one.
I think Phil left really for a mixture of reasons. I mean, I think being in a group is always a compromise. It has to be. And you have to feel that you get more from the group than you lose in the compromise. And I think Phil got to the stage when he felt differently. He felt his solo stuff was what he wanted to work on mainly. I'd like to say, we both like to say that, I mean, there was no animosity at all about it. It was a very, as much as a parting can be, it was a very friendly thing, just time for him to call it a day. We've worked out a pretty comprehensive plan for the new tour, which involves some screen work again and some other different looks. I mean, I think every time we head off for a tour, we try and find something we haven't done before. Obviously, the screens worked so well last time, sort of telling some of the stories on the songs. We've developed that, but added some new elements. I think that side of things is probably less of a worry to us, because it's something we've done for years and years, and I think we have a good feel for it. And we work with very original people, so that feels very good already.
I saw the planned tour dates today, and I think to be honest, to go and to play in Madison Square Gardens, as much as it's, there's something about Madison Square Gardens, and I've never been to America. I've kind of been everywhere in Europe, but I've never been outside Europe, never been to America. So I think to turn up in my first week in America and to play Madison Square Gardens is really quite a thrill. So I think that's probably the one I'm looking forward to the most. Genesis songs from the past, I mean, there's so many of them, and we were discussing what to include in the set list, and to be honest, the guys have been good. They're kind of the opinion that if it's a song I feel I can perform well, then it should be taken into consideration. One thing I have noticed is that that it just seems this endless list of good songs you've got to choose from, which is really nice, because obviously when you're normally out with a band, you've got your album or maybe the album before, but with Genesis you've got 19 of them, so it's kind of this endless list of material.